Welcome, welcome everybody. This is Ginell Cooper, and today we're going to attempt to recreate my accidental sweater. So the story behind the sweater is basically that thing that happens right after Christmas when you've been making Christmas presents like mad and you're all done and the presents have all been given and you still have that thing where you just want to make something but you don't really know what to make. This is how the sweater came to be. So I basically started off, I think what I wanted to make was one of those like hooded cowl neck things. But then as I started making it, that's why I just made the cowl neck and just started going, and didn't have a pattern I was working off of or anything. I was just trying to figure it out as I go. But as I started going, I realized that I'm probably not gonna wear that. It's just not my style. So I try not to make things that I'm not gonna wear because that's just a waste of yarn, right? So as it got bigger, it got to be about to this part right here, and then I posted it on my Facebook group and I'm like, what do you guys think it should be? And a lot of people said it should be a poncho. And I was like, okay, that's actually a brilliant idea. My problem with the poncho is that, once again, I just don't wear them. And so I'm like, well, again, I love this yarn. This is Lion Brand Scarfy yarn. It is so soft and just like, it's just so yummy. And I just love it so much. So I didn't want to like make something in this beautiful, amazing yarn and then just have it hang in my closet and never wear it. So I kind of made a poncho, but what I ended up doing was connecting right here where the bottom of my arms were, and then just went straight down and made it into a sweater. So the concept is actually really easy, but honestly, I just made it up as I went along. So, and because I've done a couple of other projects since then, it's gonna be really fun to see if I can remember how I did it. So I created this rudimentary sketch because I'm a very visual person and I like to not only learn through visuals, but also teach through visuals. So I'm going to just kind of show you the layout of what I went through and measured everything, kind of what my plan is on this. This is a rib stitch. It just starts off as a big circle, or it actually starts off flat, and then we connect it in the back as with just a join. And actually I might use a different join than I used on this one because I've learned a different join since then that I like better. But so we're gonna join this in the back and make it into this round thing. Then we're going to turn it and we're going to start adding on at the base of, right here, at the base of the ribbed part. And we're gonna double the stitches. So we're going to see how I put 2 stitches into every row. We're gonna double the stitches, and then on the next row, we're going to go up another level. So we're gonna actually triple these stitches. And then we're just gonna work our way out. This is just done in lemon peel stitch, which gives it this really cool texture, but it's super easy. It's just single crochet, double crochet, single crochet. It's nice because it doesn't get boring, which is really cool. So like when you're sitting there, you can still do it because it's easy watching TV or whatever, but it doesn't get like boring, and it's such a short project that it'll go really fast. So so this is all lemon peel here, which is what I put on this. Then when you get to this area, which is basically, we're gonna go out from 11 inches wide to about 22 inches wide, and then it's gonna start to just sort of drop down straight. This part will be kind of gathered up here and kind of like around the neck area, and then it kind of just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so cool the way it works out. So it kind of comes out straight. Once it gets past your arms, we just kind of stop doing this part out here, and then we come in and we just start doing on the inner start. So we're gonna skip this area and go in here to where your armpit is, and then just go down the rest of the way. Then we're gonna go back and we're gonna add to the arms. So on my original one, I didn't really add to the arms very much. I added maybe, I don't know, maybe like a row or 2. But my daughter suggested that she thought it might look a little bit better if it had slightly longer sleeves on it. And I'm gonna leave that up to you, what you wanna do with, you could actually make long sleeves on it if you want to. Totally depends on how it fits your body. So these measurements are based off of my body and this sweater. You can make them wider if you want, and I'll show you how to do that. You can make this part skinnier if you don't like that big neck and you want it skinnier around your neck, you can do that. There's lots of different ways you can do it. It's all about how many stitches you add right here. So, and then the rest of it just kind of comes together. This is a very stretchy, and then we're gonna finish with a crab stitch on the end because it just gives it this nice little rolled finish. And it looks kind of fancy, but it's not. It's just a crab stitch. One thing I love about this yarn is how stretchy it is. So, and because it's this stretchy, not only does, like, I consider myself probably a size medium, but this could fit a small person. It could also probably fit a large person. If you're doing like an extra large or bigger, you may want to add a few more stitches around the neck just to make it slightly wider this way, whatever you're most comfortable with. But because it's so stretchy, it tends to kind of cling to your body form, which is pretty flattering, I think. So kind of a nice flattering style for a sweater. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna tell you what materials to get. 2 skeins of scarfie yarn. So usually Amazon, I'm gonna be honest, usually Amazon yarn is a little bit overpriced, but this one is not. These are actually a pretty good deal. I don't remember how much they were, but I think they were like, I want to say they were like maybe $6 each. Like this sweater is probably $12, maybe $14, right? Especially if you have Prime. But y'all are gonna get mad at me because it's really hard to see black yarn on camera. So I'm gonna try to do most of the instructional parts in the red. We'll see if I can manage it. Or I'm just gonna try to zoom in really well and make the light really bright on that black. But the link that I'm gonna give you, there are lots and lots of color choices to choose from. And some of them I'm a little jealous because that yellow and cream one is super pretty. There's just some turquoise ones in there, just some really pretty ones. So take a look at that and see if you wanna get those there. You could probably have them in the next day or two if you wanted. You're gonna need stitch markers for sure. Always, just so that we know where the arms are and all that stuff. We're gonna use it to figure that stuff out. You're gonna wanna have this to weave in your ends, and this, and then I always try to, I don't remember what size hook I used on this, because once again, I just grabbed stuff and started crocheting, but it calls for a K hook, and just knowing my personality, I tend to always try to use the hook that it asks for. So I'm gonna say, let's do a K hook. If it ends up being smaller than I thought, then maybe we'll switch to. So the other thing too is I tend to go up one hook size if I want it to be nice and loose and flowy. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. I'm gonna start off with a K. Even if you are a beginner, you could do the sweater. So it might be a little scary at first because it does seem like a big project, but it's really just a tube and then a bigger tube, and then we just sew it together on the arms. It's like super, super easy. So we're gonna do, the stitches we're gonna do is single crochet back loop only, single crochet double crochet because that's the lemon peel stitch, and the crab stitch, which is a reverse single crochet. Those are all the ones we're gonna do. And probably chaining. We're gonna do a foundation single crochet row. You don't have to do that. You can just do a chain to start this off. You can just do your chaining and then do a row of single crochets. I'm not gonna be mad at you for that. The reason I do foundation rows is because it makes it stretchier. So if you do just a chain here and then you do a single crochet, it's not gonna stretch like this. It's gonna be stuck like that because chains just don't move. So that's why I use foundation chains or foundation rows like that. I do have a 1-minute video on foundation rows, so if I don't go in depth as much as I should on this, then check that out because that actually, you can watch it on loop over and over, and I have it for single, half double, and double crochets on my Stitch Minute. Let's go ahead and get started on this. So our first goal is that we're gonna start off with a foundation single crochet row, and we're going to make it, this says 7.5 inches, but I promise once you get past that first foundation row and you start doing, it's gonna expand a little bit. So I'm gonna do it 7 inches, and it's probably going to turn out to be 7.5 inches. That's how this got measured. When you fold it down, it's shorter. It's not 7.5 inches. That's just the full height of it. So that's what we're gonna start off with. So we're gonna go ahead and start with a slip stitch or slip knot. So just pull that up. We're going to chain 1. This is a K hook, by the way, because that's what this yarn calls for. So I wasn't getting fancy on that. Chain 2, and we're gonna do a regular, just a foundation single crochet. So you're gonna go back into the original first chain. You're gonna pull up a loop. Usually for a single crochet at this point, you would just yarn over and go through 2, right? But we are going to yarn over and we're gonna chain 1, and that is the base chain. So you're basically doing 2 rows at once. Instead of doing chain, 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 and then turn around and doing single crochet back, you're doing the chain and the single crochet at the same time. So what it makes it stretchier, but it also makes it a little bit more true to the size that you're going to be working with. It's just, I mean, foundation rows changed my life. So hopefully they will change your life too, if you give them a chance. They can be a little bit intimidating. So now that you've finished that chain right there, kind of keep an eye on it and know what it looks like, because you're going to go back into that chain on the next stitch. You're going to yarn over and go through both of those, and that's the single crochet. So essentially what you have made is you've made a chain on the bottom and a single crochet on top. And it's gonna go like this, but we work it this way because it's just easier than doing it the other way. So back into that chain, and you can actually tell really well with this yarn, and hopefully you can see it. But it's kind of this round horseshoe right here with 2 strings going through it. You want to go through the middle of that little horseshoe, upside down horseshoe, and the way you want it, there's 3 pieces of yarn to every chain. Wow, that was a loud car. There's 3 pieces of yarn to every chain. You want to go through it so that there's 2 on this side and 1 on the back side. See that one right there? And that's how you know you're in the chain. I think a lot of times people get stuck because they don't go through the chain, they actually go through the space above the chain, and it ends up looking wonky. Or they don't go through that chain, they go through the original chain. So just make sure it's the one that you just created. Pull up a loop, yarn over, chain 1, yarn over, go through both loops. So that's your second chain and your second single crochet. And we're just gonna do that until it's about 7 inches. And luckily I have one to work off of, so I know about how many stitches I did. If you wanna make yours longer, you can. If you wanna make it a mock turtleneck and not the kind that folds over, you can do like half the size. You really can do anything you want. So you see that pattern forming there? So you can see those chains, and then the single crochets are on top of the chains right there. And the row actually looks like that. So hopefully that all makes sense. Meet me when you get to about 7 inches. We'll stop. Okay, here we go. That is about 7 inches. When you do foundation rows, they kind of have this kind of crazy arch to them. Don't worry about it. They always work themselves out with the next rows coming up. So that's where we're gonna turn around and go back for me, because I'm doing the longer. That doesn't seem very long, I know, but it actually is. Like, this is actually gonna fold over and be this big loopy thing. It's just hard to tell from looking at it that it's actually that. This turns out to be about 7.5 inches, but that's, I think, because it stretches out. So it's about right. Seems small, and yet I think it's correct. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are going to chain up 1. You're gonna turn your work, and now you're gonna do single crochets, back loop only, all the way down. Now, if you want to chain, or you wanna stitch mark your ends, I would not be against that, because sometimes when you're doing a rib stitch, which is what this is a single crochet rib stitch, it's hard to tell where that last stitch is, because it kind of gets blended in with the side. So especially if you're new to crocheting and you're attempting to do this as a brand new crocheter, good for you. You're a person after my own heart. I do that all the time. But you should see the first thing I ever made. It was super complicated. And if I'd asked anybody else, can I do this? They'd be like, you should probably practice chaining first. So go for it. I say go for it. The worst thing that can happen is you don't like it. You just take it apart and start over. But definitely I think the biggest issue with brand new crocheters is they always miss that last stitch, and then they wonder why their work kind of goes in like this instead of staying straight, and you end up losing stitches as you go. So get used to doing that. For some reason, I had to swallow my pride a little bit to start using stitch markers, but you don't have to swallow your pride. It's master crocheters use stitch markers, so do it. It's good for you, and it'll save you so much time and hassle. So see how I'm going in just that this is the front loop right here, this is the back loop. Usually when we crochet, we go through both of them, but we are choosing to only go through the back on this, and that's what's going to create this ridge, which is going to give you that ribbed look on there. This yarn, I think the reason I love this yarn so much is that it doesn't split, and it's just super easy to work with. Like, look how easy I don't know. I just love it so much. Hopefully it does have wool in it. And usually I'm not a big fan of wool yarn just because I'm afraid of the washing instructions on the wool yarn. But I've gotten used to everything. I wash everything and dry everything on delicate now. So I haven't had any problems for a long time, knock on wood. But I should actually knock on wood. But the socks that I just made have a tiny bit of wool in them. The sweater has a tiny bit of wool in it, which makes it super warm, by the way. And I just love it. I'm surprised at how soft it is, considering that it's part wool and part acrylic. Okay, so we're gonna go all the way down here. Just want to show you really quickly. This is the last stitch. It's pretty easy to see when you first start off. It's when you get going, they start to kind of blend in with the side. So that's the last stitch. I'm gonna go ahead and mark it. Actually, I'm gonna mark it when I start the next row. But you're going to want to chain up one, turn around and do the same exact thing. Don't go in the chain, go in the stitch before the chain. Back loop only, single crochets all the way around. And then if you want to be extra sure, just mark that stitch right there. There we go. Okay, so keep doing that until this piece is, what did I say, 11? So you want it to be 22 inches wide. So keep going until it's 22 inches wide, and then we're gonna connect it together. So it'll be about 11 inches wide. Again, if you want it to be tighter around your neck, so here's a picture of what it looks, the blue one looks like on me. It's got a kind of a big cowl neck on it. If you want it to be tighter around the neck, do less stitches, do it smaller. But that means that you're probably gonna have to increase more stitches when we get to the actual sweater part. So just keep that in mind. That's not a big deal. You can do that. If you want it to not be as tall, maybe just go to here. And then you can do a tighter sort of mock turtleneck look if you want to. Anything that you think is going to look best on your body or the person who you're making it for, go for it. The sky's the limit, right? Nobody says you have to follow any rules. You can do whatever you want. So I'm gonna keep doing this until it's about 22 inches long, and then I'll get back with you. Okay, so I finished it. I actually went too far. I had to go back and undo it. I was watching a TV show and just having fun, and I went a little bit too far. So, okay, so what I did before was I just went through and I just did a little slip stitch on the inside loops all the way up. And you can do that if you want to. But I'm gonna try and do this other thing instead. But it's gonna require me to cut the yarn, which I'm not usually a fan of. I kind of like to keep it all going, but this time I'm gonna do it because I think it gives a more invisible join. So we're gonna give it a try and see if we like it. So I'm just gonna give myself a little bit of space to sew with. And this actually kind of gives us some freedom too, because to be honest, I like this edge. I think it's cleaner than this edge. So this edge is gonna end up being the edge that we start around the neck, the base, and this will be the top part of the turtleneck so that it just has a cleaner edge to it. For some reason, the right side of things on me always ends up being a little bit looser than the left. That's true in Tunisian crochet too, so I'm not really sure why that happens, but it does. So I just find ways around it. So we're gonna go ahead and thread this needle. It's just a tapestry needle. And I'm just gonna run through this loop like a little knot. Okay, so here's the plan. Instead of crocheting this up and making kind of a thicker ridge than what we want, I'm gonna stitch this up with my special little stitch that I learned that I'm sure is probably just a mattress stitch, but I don't know what to call it because I learned it on Pinterest and it was done by a video in another language, so I don't know what they called it, but super easy. So what we're gonna do though, is in order to keep that ridge matching this side, we're gonna act like these stitches right here are the ones that we're gonna use, I think. And I think we're gonna go through both of these. So you're gonna come up from the bottom and go out to the outside to get started. Then you're gonna come back this way and you're gonna come up through the bottom and go out to this side. But you're only gonna go through the back loop on this one. Finding the back loop on this first stitch has been a little harder. Okay, so only the back loop on the side closest to you, and the side farther away, you're gonna go through both loops. Let's see if this works. And then just go back and forth, kind of like you're lacing up a shoe. Okay, so you can see how it kind of just goes back and forth. We're gonna make that hopefully just disappear. Just pull the string and it just kind of goes together, just like that. So I think that's just cleaner looking. And the ridge is still there. It still matches. It still matches on this side, although this side I kind of like better. So this may end up being the side that we fold outward. Yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen. So let's do that. So we'll just continue doing this all the way up to the edge. And then we'll decide what sides we like best to go where, and then we'll start crocheting the rest of the body. Okay, so I'm starting with the, I would say less perfect side on, it's not that bad, but the less perfect side is gonna be on the outside, because when you fold it, you want the better side to show when it folds over. If you're doing a mock turtleneck, then maybe do it the opposite way, so that this part is the outside when you start doing this part right here. So what you're gonna do is you want to basically add stitches. So right now you have, for each one of these rows, you basically have a stitch here, a stitch here, a stitch here, and a stitch here, and a stitch here, and a stitch here, right? Because that's a row, this is a row. We're gonna double that. Basically you're increasing and then regular, and then increase and then regular. And then when we come around the next time, we're gonna do it again. Increase and then regular. And then each time you do that, you're basically growing your row by that many stitches, however many stitches this is. And mine was 50 rows, so you're basically adding 25 stitches. Not that the stitch count matters, but just so you know kind of what the plan is. See, so basically what I'm doing is when I come across a ridge, right after the ridge, I'm increasing. The one before the ridge, I'm not. Then after the ridge, I increase by adding 2 stitches, 2 single crochets in there. And then after the ridge, or before the ridge, it's just a regular single crochet. I try not to use this one because this right here is super gappy, and if I put 2 stitches in there, it's gonna make it like a hole right there, and we don't want that. So I always try to go to the one that has like a couple of pieces of yarn in there so that it's stronger and it doesn't have a gappy hole. So not this big open space that's calling for you, but the one before it. Okay, so I should have about 75 stitches because I had 50 rows and I added a stitch every other row. So that would have added 25 stitches, so I should have about 75. I'm not gonna count them right now because it doesn't really matter. The stitch count doesn't matter as long as you're growing. So see how it's like grown out? The goal here is to double it, maybe triple it if you're trying to do like an extra large or an extra large. Mine, I believe I just doubled it. So we went from 50 rows, which should have been 50 stitches, to 100. So we're gonna do one more row and we're gonna do the same thing. We're just going to grow it, and you don't wanna slip stitch to join. You just wanna keep on going. So you're gonna go ahead and increase in that first stitch, and then it's gonna be single, increase, and then single, increase, and then single. And it's not gonna match what's going on above it like it would like for a circle, because usually for a circle you can tell like you're increasing on top of increases. We're just doing the same thing we just did the row before, and it is going to increase it. We're basically doubling it total. Once I get past this part where I was literally just winging it, not really knowing what I was doing when I first started making this thing, I think that it'll go a lot more smoothly. I won't be second guessing myself, because a lot of times on this part I'm just like, is that what I did? What was I thinking? And it was like literally the week between Christmas and New Year's when I made it, and now it's almost February, so who knows what I was thinking at the time. I just sort of trusted that I would be able to figure it out. And we'll see if that trust was unfounded. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. One thing that I do need to do is I need to make sure that I have an odd number of stitches. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just double check the stitch count on my first piece, just so that I know for sure that I'm on the right track. And then the reason why we want it to be odd number stitches is because if we were doing lemon peel stitch and it was back and forth, you would want it to be an even number of stitches, because you want the double crochet to be on top of the single crochet. So a lemon peel stitch is basically just single, double, single, double, single, double, right? But then when you turn around and go the other way, you want the single to be on top of the double to be on top of the single, and so forth, right? Well, that works if you have an even number of stitches, but if you're working in the round like we are, you want it to be an odd number of stitches so that it throws it off. Otherwise, you just be doubles on top of doubles. Hopefully that made sense. So, so let me just double check my numbers real quick and make sure that we are on the right track, and then we are off to the races. I don't know how I did this, but so I counted the stitches on my first one, and it's actually 111. And I was like, oh, I wonder how I did that differently. And then I counted the stitches on this one, and it's 111. Actually, it's 112. So I'm gonna take it down to 111, and then we're good to go. And I don't know, I must have made the same mistake twice, whatever it was. It's not really a mistake if you just keep doing it, right? So, so we're gonna continue on with the lemon peel stitch. I'm a little concerned because this reminds me of a Halloween costume that my daughter used to have that was a jester costume, and I wonder if every time I look at this I'm gonna think jester, but it'll be in the back, so probably not. Looks like that in the front so far. So it's just the way the yarn worked out and I don't want to undo it and redo it, so we're gonna just keep on keeping on. So here's how it's gonna go. You're just gonna keep going from now on in circles. Just keep going, keep going, and keep going, because it's gonna go in this direction while it's adjusting itself to all these new stitches we put in there. You're gonna do a lemon peel stitch is basically just single crochet and then double crochet. And then single crochet and then double crochet. Just keep doing that all the way around. When we get to the other end of this round, and you can mark put a stitch marker in the beginning of the round. You probably will know because we're still pretty close and you can see that line right there. But if you want to put in a stitch marker where your first single crochet was, then you know where the round ended. And then that'll basically show us where we need to make the switch up, because when we come around, this is the double crochet, this is the single crochet. When we come around, we want to make sure we put a double crochet on top of the single and a single on top of the double, and that'll give us that texture that's just kind of a cool, it's just like slightly fancier than doing regular single crochet or regular double crochets all the way around. Okay, so just continue on. I'll meet you at this transition right here, and then after that you can just go, and then we'll probably just meet when we get out to where we want the shoulders to be. Here we are, I'm at the stitch marker, and the last one is, so that was a double, this is a single crochet, and then the next one is going to be a double, and that's going to be right on top of the single crochet, so it's going to work out. As you start to do this stitch, you'll start to question yourself, what is on top of the single? Is it before or after? I always just do the one before it, because it's always, we're not going right into the stitch itself, we're going into the loops before it. The next one is a double crochet, we're going to do a single crochet right there. And then we're just going to continue going around and around and around until it is the length that you want it to be over your shoulders. Hey guys, okay, so I'm getting pretty far on this. I just wanted to take a minute to show you a couple things. One, I have a pretty awkward color change that happens right here. I can decide where I put that. So right now this is a tube, and until we've actually decided where the sleeves are gonna go, this can be turned around to be anywhere. So what's gonna be the next step is once we get it as long as we want it to be out to the shoulders or past the shoulders, we're gonna try it on, and we're going to go to where your armpits are, and you're gonna pin it right there, right? So when you try it on, you're gonna do it with the color in mind that you want to show on the front and in the back. I am probably gonna put my awkward color change on the side, actually, instead of right down the back, because people see the back. My hair's short now, so they're gonna see the back more than they're gonna see the side of it. So I think I'm probably going to do it that way. So I'll just spin it, and I'll probably do like the red. The color that looks best up next to my face is probably red, so I'll probably do the red in the front. But like I was saying before, this is a symmetrical piece, so I mean the front and the back won't matter. You can decide whatever color looks better up next to your face that day, right? So the other thing I want to show you too, so one measurement that I didn't say on here before, and I just took the time to measure, is you want it to go about 10 inches. I think what happened on my last one, trying to remember back, is that I basically went all the way out to one skein, and that's when I stopped. Which is actually, it's not 10 inches, it's probably gonna be more like 9.5. This is all I have left of the first skein. So when you get to this point, you kind of start planning out how you're gonna do your color transition, because you do want all of this to just like flow together like it's one piece. So I'm gonna end on black, actually just starting to turn back to red. So I already started to pull out my second skein and where I wanna start on it. It's really the only time you really have to be sort of, you know, a control freak about your yarn is just the transition from one skein to the other. And then after that, you just kind of let it do its thing. Probably also maybe like, just so that your arms match. I think on mine, my first one, I don't think my arms do match. I think one is a little bit lighter than the other. So maybe you don't have to be a control freak about that, because it still looks fine, but you can decide how you want to do it. I think I'm going to do that, and then maybe I'll use the black for the around the crab stitch around the arms, because then that way they'll both match. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just kind of planning ahead a little bit on this one. The last one I did not plan ahead, so I just kind of went for it. So let's see. So probably the best place, it really depends on your skein and how it's set up, but I can probably pick it up like a little further in, like here, and it'll probably do just fine. I might even go back a little bit before it started transitioning straight to the black. See how it like went from burgundy to black right about here. So I think what I'll do is I'll just go to this, and then I'll pull in the new yarn. Starting to get lighter there, so try and get it a little bit as close to that as you can. We'll save this part for later, and then we'll pull the new skein in at a yarn that matches pretty well. Just at the end of that double crochet, you're going to pull it in for those last two loops and then pull tight. The other thing I wanted to show you too is kind of a little trick on, because you know, sometimes I actually walked away from this for a while. It's been a while since I've been working on this. So when you come back to it, it's kind of hard to remember, like, was I on a double crochet or a single crochet? One thing to remember is that this right here, see how it has like a loop right there, but the next one's kind of open? That's the beginning of a single crochet. And this is the beginning of a double crochet. That's just kind of how they look. So when you're going into the top of a double crochet, you're doing a single. When you're going into the top of a single crochet, you're doing a double. So it's just kind of a cool way to remember like where you were at. You can kind of see that transition. Maybe I should go back. No, I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay. So, and then just continue onward until you get it to the length that you want. I put a lot of thought into how to make this bigger or smaller. I did not put a lot of thought into it when I was first making it. So I literally just put it on my body and whatever worked, right? Which, you know, maybe that's the best way to do it. But I think that if you are going to add stitches, the best place to add them is going to be either right here. So remember how we did 2 rows? We did a row of adding and then another row of adding, and then we were good to go, right? Because it eventually what it did was it ended up doubling our stitches. You can actually add more rows, just do a 3rd row of adding, maybe a 4th row of adding, because right here you don't really see the pattern of the lemon peel stitch. So it's kind of jumbled together, and it's like once you get down, going down this far, and then if you try to do added stitches in here, it might mess up the pattern, the look, I guess I should say, of the texture of the stitch, because you'll be able to see pretty well where you added stitches. And that's, you know, I mean, for me as kind of a perfectionist, I prefer not to see that. So this is probably the best place to add them, is right up here at the yoke. The other thing too is that you could make this bigger, just do extra rows on it, on the neck part, and that'll give you a head start as far as making it, especially if you're doing like a plus size or something. On the flip side, if you're doing a small one for say like a toddler, which would be, oh my gosh, so cute on a toddler, you would obviously, it would probably just happen pretty regularly because you would make the neck smaller anyway for a toddler. They don't want a big fat neck like this, so you'd probably want it a little bit smaller. And then if you double the stitches twice, it'll probably be perfect because they won't, you know, they don't have a lot of curves like the rest of us. So it should work out perfectly. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're sizing. I'm going to continue on with this, and then I will meet you when I get to the length. What I'm actually going to do is when I get it to the length that I want it, which for me is about 9.5 inches, it's just kind of where it fits on my arm is where I stopped. Then I'm gonna go try it on, and I'm gonna pin right under my armpits, so that like just could take like a safety pin and pin it under my armpits so I know about how wide to make that so that it's comfortable around my arms. I'll do that on both sides. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna center it. So even though you pin it right under your armpits, you're probably not, I mean, you could, maybe you're perfectly symmetrical, but you're probably not gonna get it perfectly centered. So what I'll do is I'll count like how close they are, and then I'll just kind of make an adjustment. Then at that point, we're gonna start going around the center, and we're gonna skip the outside parts altogether, and then we'll come back to them when we wanna add on to the sleeves. I hope that makes sense. So just continue on. I will meet you after I've tried it on and pinned my armpits, and that's where hopefully you will be too. So I got this to the length that I wanted, which was about 9.5 inches. And then I put it on, and I had my husband pin it for me because it's very hard to pin something under your armpit with one hand. So he took care of it for me. And then I went and looked at it in the mirror. And basically all I did was I just like pulled it together under my armpit and said, pin it right here. And that's what he did. But as you can see, it's not a perfect science, right? So what you wanna do is you wanna take it and make it even. Spread it out so that it's nice and flat. It's the same thing on both sides, right? So spread it out so it's nice and flat. And then what I did is I took from the back, I realized that I probably wanted to be a little bit tighter on the arms and a little bit looser in the front for me. What I'm gonna do then, it's gonna make it centered and also symmetrical, is we're gonna fix it on both sides, just like that. So see how that lays a lot better? We're gonna do the same thing over here on this side. So what we're gonna do now is I'm actually gonna take this yarn back to here, because I was just going around in circles until I got to kind of where I wanted it to be. So right where that is, what was the last stitch? Was a double crochet. This is going to be a single. And then we're going to jump over. So we're going to skip all of this and jump over to the stitch. Preferably that stitch is going to be the opposite of, so like this was a single, you want this one to be a double. So you want to make sure it stacks correctly. So, and it does just magically. So that's a single crochet right there, and you're going to put a double crochet right there, and then it'll just continue. So when you go around in circles on this, it's going to continue to do the exact same pattern, and you're not going to have anything off. Okay, so that was a single. This next one is a double. I just need to find my yarn. okay? And then single in the next one, and so forth. Just like keep on going on like you didn't just skip all those stitches right there. And we're gonna come back and we're going to bring those back together when we do the sleeve, and we're gonna add on to the sleeve later. But right now, just leave it where it's at and continue yourself on to the other side. And basically do the exact same thing on the other side. And from this point on, you can just go around and around and around in circles just like we did the top part until you get it as long as you want. However, I would stop after like 2 or 3 rows and try it on again and make sure it fits the way you want it to. The arms aren't too tight and all that stuff. And then you can continue on. So just keep going until you get it as long as you want. For me, it's gonna go right to my top of my jeans, but you can make it longer if you want to. You can make it shorter if you want to get crazy. And I'll meet you there. When you come back around, that's the first row where we skipped the armpit right there. We went across the arm. When you come back around, it's gonna feel super gappy. Don't worry about it. It will fix itself. Also though, when we go around and we add on to the sleeve, we're gonna cinch all that in anyway. So it's all gonna fix itself, don't worry. Just remember that this gap right here is an actual stitch. So that's a double crochet. This is gonna be a single because that was a double right there. And then this is a single and that's a double. And that's how you know that you've done it right, is that they're lining up with each other. Okay, now you can go forward, go as far as you want, but definitely try it on every now and then just to make sure that it's fitting you the way you want it to. Okay guys, so I have finished this part. I'm gonna show you how to do the bottom of it. I actually made this a little bit longer than the first one by about 2 inches because, I mean, I already have one, so I might as well change it up a little bit, right? So really weird. I had a really hard time with this particular skein. As you can see, it didn't follow the pattern of the rest of it, but I'm actually not complaining because black is slimming and right there on your hips is a good place for it to be slimming, right? So, but it just, I had to I have been weaving in ends because I had to cut it so many times. There were so many knots in that particular skein. I don't know if you guys ever come across that, but anyway, so I'm gonna show you really quick how to finish the bottom. To finish this up, instead of doing the rest of this, so there's only like 2 stitches left to finish out this row. Instead of doing the lemon peel, I'm just gonna slowly bring it down so that it's not like a jog there. So I'm just gonna do single crochet and then slip stitch and then slip stitch. And then that should finish it up for us. Since we've been working just in the round, when you get to the end of the row, you kind of just wanna slowly make it blend in with the rest of it instead of just stopping. Otherwise it'll be like a cliff right there. You don't want that. So to do a crab stitch, all right, I'm gonna apologize to you all right now. I know what I said. I said that I was going to try and do this so that the major parts were not in black because black is very hard to see on camera. So that's not how the yarn worked out for me. So I am doing the crab stitch in black. Hopefully you will get it from watching this because I do have a white background, but if not, I use the crab stitch on every basket video I've ever done. So I would definitely recommend going back to my last basket video, which was the spring mural basket, and check that out because I use that as the top edge. I think I used it on my Valentine basket. I use it on all baskets because it's just the perfect edge. Sorry, I just realized I had that inside out because I was weaving in my ends. Okay, so we're gonna try and do the crab stitch here real quick. To do that, all you're gonna do is you don't even chain up one, you just turn around and go back the way you came. Go into this back stitch. This is basically just a reverse single crochet. So you're still doing single crochet, you're just doing it backwards instead of from right to left. So, or if you're left-handed, just do it the opposite direction. I usually do it. But you're gonna cross over, go under that stitch, pull up a thread, and then see that crisscross that happens right there? That is the part that makes it rolled. So then you're just gonna yarn over and go through both of those. And just keep doing that all the way across. See that crisscross right there? Keep the crisscross, yarn over, go through both. See how it makes that really cool sort of rolled edge on it? It's perfect. I thought about doing a little bit of a rib stitch on the bottom, also would be a great idea if you want to. I'm gonna show you how to do that on the sleeves, hopefully, if it works out well. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on. I will meet you back here so I can show you how to weave in your ends so it all looks perfect. Okay guys, so I did the last little crab stitch in the stitch that we ended on and then went backward, so because there wasn't like a good roll right there, so I did the last one right there. Rather than knotting it, you're just gonna pull that through and cut it off. I mean, it's kind of already knotted, right? Because it's already through that stitch. But then what we're gonna do is we're going to weave in our end so that it goes smoothly through the ones that you started with. That way you won't know where the beginning and where the end is. It's one of the things I love about the crab stitch is how perfectly it just goes together. This yarn, I have been fighting with it. I didn't fight with it the first time. I think it's just this skein. Okay, so go to the very first stitch and you're just gonna go ahead and weave your ends in right through those other little rolls. Just go like 4, 5, 6, whatever makes you happy. And then you're going to grab a little stitch behind that nobody's gonna see and then turn around and go right back the way you came through those little roll there. I can't speak, through the rolls. And that back and forth action keeps the yarn from coming out. If you feel the need to go back again, you can, but honestly, it's not even necessary. And then just cut it right there. And then that yarn doesn't work itself out because it's stopping itself right there. That is a great way to always weave in your ends with everything. It's perfect for holding magic circles together. It's wonderful. So see how like you can't even tell where the beginning and where the end is on that. So that's the bottom of our sweater. Let me just remind you really quickly what it looks like on the original sweater's sleeves. So what I did with this one is I just came around and I did just regular, I didn't even do the lemon peel. I just did regular single crochet for like 2 or 3 rounds. And then I did a crab stitch around that. Okay guys, this sweater is almost done. And I love it just as much as I love the other one. It's amazing how easy this is. You know, all the years that I thought making sweaters was like probably the hardest thing ever, this one is just so darn easy. So this is the sleeve that I did ahead of time for you guys to see. So what ended up happening was I did, instead of doing 3 rows of just regular single crochet like I did before, I did 3 rows of the lemon peel stitch. So it just continued on. And then I finished it with a crab stitch. But before I did that, I tried to see what it would look like if I elongated the sleeve. And it's a little bit longer than the other one, but not by much. But I had it out to here. And then I tried it on and I did not enjoy it. So the thing is, it probably would look really cute on somebody with super skinny arms, but I do not have super skinny arms. So know your body, know what looks good on your body, and kind of make it happen, you know, make it look however is most flattering for you. We are gonna start in this gappy spot right here. And we're gonna leave a pretty long tail because at the end of it, when we're done doing our in the round and everything, we're gonna come back and we're gonna use this tail to kind of close up any gappiness going on. There's always a little gappiness right there that you kind of have to pull together. So that's what we're gonna do. So leave yourself a little bit of a tail. It doesn't have to be super long, just a little bit so that you have something to work with. Go down into the middle. And what we need to do is we need to kind of figure out which was single crochet and which was double crochet. And I have, it looks like 2 singles next to each other. So I'm gonna show you how to crochet 2 together, and that'll kind of actually like get it a little bit tighter right here too, which will be nice. I'm gonna go ahead and jump down here. I'm gonna pull up a loop and we're just going to slip stitch to join. So these are 2 singles next to each other. So when you connected them together, didn't necessarily mean that we got the right number of stitches up here, and that's okay because we're just gonna pull them together anyway. So these are 2 singles next to each other. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm going to combine them together. Just to make things easier for you, because this is in the armpit, no one's gonna see it. I'm going to teach you just how to do single crochet 2 together. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna start a single crochet here, you're gonna start a single crochet here, and then you're gonna yarn over and pull through all of that. And that's basically taking 2 stitches down to 1. Then this is a single, so we're gonna do a double crochet here, and a single crochet here, because this was a double because it has that extra little piece of yarn right there. And then that was a single, and then a double here. And then once you've established the pattern, you'll just be able to go around in circles, and it'll all go together. Okay, so you aren't gonna, now that you are in the right mode where you're just following what's below you, you're not gonna have a problem again until you get to the other side. So just keep going around until we get to this part right here, and then I'll show you how to make any changes you need to make, and then we'll just continue on for 3 rounds. And then I'll show you how to do the crab stitch, and then we're done, and then I'll try it on for you so you can see it on. So we are at the bottom of the armpit right there. So I'm just gonna see kind of where we're at. So that was a single, I put a double in it. This is a double crochet, so I'm putting a single in it. This is a single, you know, it should go back and forth still, but at some point it might not. So we'll just kind of keep an eye out for where things get wonky. That's a double, so we're still putting a single in there. And then I believe, kind of want to skip over this business because it's kind of a mess because it's too loose right there anyway. So we're going to kind of cinch it in. This is where we did the slip stitch to join. This was the 2 single crochets that we pulled together, and I just did a single. So I should just be able to do a double into this, and then we're all set. So it's going to create a little bit of a gap right here. That is what we're going to fix with this tail when we get to the weaving in your ends part. But from now on, you should just be able to continue because that's a double crochet. We're putting a single there. The next one's a single. We're putting a double. So just keep going around till you've done 3 rows around, and then we'll crab stitch, and I'll show you how to kind of weave in your ends so that you fix whatever holes you got going on, and then we'll be done. Okay, so I've come to the end. I'm back down to, I've done 3 rows and I'm back down to the little armpit area. So I'm going to just kind of slowly slow it down so it's not just a, you know, like we're going from a double crochet down to nothing. And then I'm gonna reverse it and we're gonna do the crab stitch around the edge. So one thing I can tell you is that I didn't quite get the colors exactly, but I think it's fine. No one's gonna notice, right? And it's a little bit, it's okay if it's a little bit off because the whole thing is, you know, striped. So I think it'll be fine instead of trying to go through and doctor it. So I'm gonna go ahead and work backward now and go right into the crab stitch on the next stitch back. And then just continue that for 1 row all the way around. I'm really hoping that white background is helping, but again, if you cannot see this, check out any of my basket videos because they all end in crab stitches. Okay guys, wasn't that easy? So fast and done. So now what we're doing, we have a goal, and that goal is to fix this little issue right here, which you can't even really see it until you actually put the sweater on, and then you can see it. It's kind of just gappy right there. It's not bad, but it's enough to make you go, I kind of wish that was a little bit tighter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this thread from the beginning and we're gonna just weave our ends in down this way and bring it back up, and it'll just kind of cinch things together. I did that on this side, and as you can see, it's just not so gappy right there. So we're going to do that. I actually love weaving in my ends because it gives me the opportunity to fix anything that is incorrect or that I'm not liking. So, but to do that, I think I'm actually gonna turn this inside out. So, okay, so gappiness be gone. We're just gonna take this thread and we're just gonna kind of weave it in with all of these. and just sort of cinch it together. Not too tight, just enough to kind of make it look natural. And then you're gonna jump over something. So grab an extra thread to jump over and then go back the way that you came. And because that should be enough to weave in the ends, but because we're actually trying to fill some, or to tighten up some holes here, I'm gonna do it this way too, just to kind of bring this together a little bit more. So let's go this way. And then just kind of jump over something, or under something, I guess, depending on how you look at it, and come back the way you came. Kind of spread it out a little bit, see if everything's good. I could actually cinch this up a little too right here, just so it doesn't look so... Not a lot, just a little. There we go. Much better, right? Okay, so hang tight. I'm gonna try this on for you so you can see what it looks like. Now I get to decide, do I like the red in front or the black in front? I mean, really, it depends on your mood that day. Because really this is completely symmetrical, so it could go either way. And you don't have a tag to worry about, which is good. Ta-da! Here it is. Check it out. Check out the back. Like I'm gonna be flipping the color back and forth, I think. So if you would like to share pictures of your finished project, or if you need help along the way while you're doing this project, come and join me on my Facebook group called Ginell's Quarantine Crochet. There's lots of people there who are super helpful and just kind and supportive and just wonderful. So I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you enjoyed it too. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.